Hello, 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 everybody out there. Um, so let's see. Check in. Just checking the sound out. Hopefully, everybody could hear me well. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. All right. Right there. Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another great podcast episode of Breaking Bread with Corey. You can find me on Spotify as well in the audio version. Thank you for joining me. And we have a great show for you today. Such an exciting week that we have planned. We have another guest later on this evening. We kicked off International Women's Day with Marsha Jones from Urban Connoisseurs. That was just a blast. And like I said, throughout the month of March, we are going to be celebrating women in all walks of life in the beer, wine, and spirits industry. And if you dig it all, if you know it all, these ladies are incredible. And I'm so lucky to share some time with this lady tonight. So today, but before we do that, for most of you that don't know, I've actually been in the wine and cheese pairing, basically industry for close to 15 years. And I showcase a lot of basically quick and easy ideas. And one of them today I'm actually going to showcase before we get the interview started. And you could actually see it on my galactic tray if I were to turn the camera like this. This is you could actually see it. It's a Death Star cheese cutting board. And let me fix that back up so I can make sure we are good to go. As you can see, I'm a big Star Wars fan, big cycling nut. That's where I get the name Le Voyage, meaning the traveling bicycle in French. That was the first wine that actually started off my wine career, was a beautiful red wine from the Rhone Valley. So I'm just going to fix the camera and make sure it's all there. But this cheese pairing that I actually did is a simple one, and I'm going to leave the recipe attached to the video. It might not be attached, completely attached, because I'm not tech savvy, but it might be in conjunction with that. It's basically a kettle chip like this from Trader Joe's, and it's basically a double Gloucester cheese from England. And it is absolutely incredible. And I put it on top of the chip, and basically what I call it is a unbaked potato. And I actually did this back in 2000, I believe it was 2012, in competition with, I've been in the retail aspect, and that was one of the ones that I did to try to create sales for the retailer I was working for at the time. So, if you want more on this, I'm going to leave the recipe. Very simple. I create everything that takes no more than 5 minutes or less. So if you're in a rush, you have friends coming over when we all start to gather again, you could create these recipes. You don't have to cook them. You could snap your fingers and it's done. Okay? So this is the one thing that I create, and I hope you enjoy it. Taste it. It does taste like a twice unbaked potato. It has cheddar and chives on top of the potato chip, and it's simple and easy. And so, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Let me see. I'm going to get the woman of the hour. I am so glad to. She'll be joining me right now. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Let's see. Did she get the invite? All right. You have the invitation there. And actually, what I'm drinking today, since I'm a dad, if you watch the live interview with Urban Connoisseurs, Marcia Jones, I was celebrating the kickoff to International Women's Day and Women's Month with the McBride sisters. This is their Sauvignon Blanc, and this comes from the Marlborough region of New Zealand. And I actually made a mistake because I was so excited about interviewing Marcia. It was hilarious. I said Australia. So forgive me on that. You could call me on my mistakes, all right? It's all good. But yeah, and after just a few days, this is the one thing that I recommend if you have an open bottle of white wine. You can put it in your fridge door. And this is the best place to put your cheese, too. Where you put your butter, that little area of shelving that you have, because it's the most occupied area, so it keeps the humidity in and out. It doesn't overly chill it. It just keeps it at the right temperature. So great place to put your wine, great place to put your cheese. You don't want to put your cheese way back in the fridge, because that's what makes it start to mold. It needs air to breathe. Okay, so I'm going to be drinking the McBride sisters Sauvignon Blanc, and it's still delicious as the first day I opened it. That just shows you a beautifully produced wine, and that's what the Marlborough region of New Zealand does. So let me see. Let me see if I can get you on again. I'm going to send a request again. Let's see.
Let's see if we get you on. There you are.
Sorry about that. This is my first live session, so I did not know what to do.
All right. How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Oh, excited. You know, we've been conversing about this back and forth for the past week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting this thing together, and I'm so excited to share the screen with you. You know, are you drinking anything right now?
I have a Sancerre. Had like a very Loire sponsored week.
I love Sancerre. You know, that is my go-to Sauvignon Blanc as far as my favorite region of Sauvignon Blanc. That's how I discovered Sauvignon Blanc with Sancerre.
Nice.
And I went to Pouilly Fumé and so forth, but I love Sancerre. And I usually hold Sancerre to special occasions, and this is a great occasion.
There you go.
We are breaking bread.
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to check out my little pairing?
Yeah, I did. The potato chips, they sound really good.
Potato chips. And the cheese is actually Cotswold. It's a double Gloucester from England.
Okay.
One of the cool things about it is if you're vegetarian, it has a microbial rennet. And as those of you that don't know what rennet is, it's basically, I call it the gluten that holds the bind of the cheese together. So it's like gluten and bread.
Nice.
It binds it. So you have microbial, you have vegetable, and you have an animal rennet. This is actually perfectly safe for a vegetarian. So if you dig it, it's cool. Now, I got a comment that I'm kind of muffled. Can you hear me?
You're a little muffled to me. I wasn't sure if it was just to me, though.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. I'm going to cut off this.
Ooh, that's better.
All right. Can you hear me now? Clear? All right.
Like the most.
All right, so we're good to go. I was trying to use my Bluetooth because a lot of times, you know, I have my kiddo going back and forth. He's in the other room. And so I tried to put the earphones on. I was like, let me see if this would work. So it didn't work. And those of you with kiddos, if you're trying to do a little live feed, make sure you have your audio correct. And that's why I went on a little bit early. But thank you for letting me know it was muffled. But yeah, I'm so excited. Enough about my cheese and all that other stuff. Introduce yourself and who you are.
Well, my name is Elise. I started my wine page, like, I wouldn't even say a full year ago. It was just for fun. Actually, you know what? It might be a full year now. I think it was like March something. But yeah, it was just kind of a fun pastime during the pandemic and a way to use like my wine knowledge from home. And it's grown and it's been really fun. And it's really cool to like reach out and like meet other people in the wine industry, and especially like I didn't even know that like a vinfluencer or like a winefluencer was a thing. So it's fun to see people with like, you know, 40K followers that are just like, instead of like some product, it's like some bottle of wine, and you're like, oh yeah, those are my people.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey man, it's a new time. Everybody goes in lockdown. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna figure out to, you know, keep everything going, keep sane, right? You know, and you know that it's one of the things that just made it so interesting when I started at the beginning of lockdown, looking at everything and starting to follow everyone. And I was like, this is unreal. This is like a commercial. You know, it is insane. But such a great community of people that are out there doing some innovative, impressive things. And that was the one thing that really impressed me by your story. You know, tell us about your story. You went from vineyard to tattoo industry to lay it all down. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I definitely kind of jumped around in my career choice. When I was in school, I was an art major. Because I was a student athlete, and so I think, you know, 17-year-old me going to college was like, I'll just pick the thing that I am naturally very good at, so I don't have to like put an excruciating amount of effort into school because I want to play. And yeah, so I graduated with an art degree. Thought I was going to do tattoo artist because I just really like the whole idea of tattoos, and, you know, it just being like something ornamental and something you take to your grave, and like that it's just like individualized for each person and it's like part of them, you know? So in order to become a tattoo artist, you have to serve an apprenticeship, and the apprenticeships can get like pretty intense. Mine was great. I love the shop I worked at. My mentor was awesome. But as I did it for about a year. You're unpaid, so you're volunteering your time. And to obviously like make money and survive, I worked at a vineyard, so I was a tour guide. I knew nothing about wine, so all I had was really the training. The training that we had. It was basically like, here's people, entertain them for, you know, 2 hours. And I was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I'll just talk about science.
How did that work?
I mean, it was a lot of just learning on the job. You know, you like pick up things from people around you. The guy who trained me actually was super knowledgeable about wine. And I even remember I asked him at some point, I was like, oh, would you ever like do any certifications or be like a somm? And he was like, oh, I'm colorblind. And I didn't know anything about wine at that point. So I was like, why does that matter? I was like, isn't it a drink? But yeah, so he was great. He helped me out a lot. And then, yeah, you just kind of learn from the people around you, and just being in it every day and having people ask you questions, I think was the biggest thing. Cause like, I'd want to have an answer, you know? So I'd go home and like research it. And, but yeah, so I had kind of like that part of my life going just 2 days a week. And then the rest, I was just like in the shop, you know, doing drawings, talking to clients, cleaning the shop mainly is like what you do. And, you know, building machines, learning how to tattoo, started tattooing, for apprentice tattoos. You basically just do like a discounted rate because you're not licensed yet, but you're licensed as like a student. And just, I just didn't have like the same love for it that my mentor did. Like he loved it. He like lived, breathed tattoo. Like that was, you know? And I think that's what made me realize I was like, I don't want to do this forever. I also have kind of like, yeah, I have like a little bit
Did
of
you
arthritis in my hands, so my hands would hurt a lot.
did you see any art that you just thought that was like your favorite piece of art? You know, I always consider tattoos art. You know,
Yeah.
like you said, it's all about the individual. But is there any particular tattoo that it was just like, man, that's awesome?
Not like, I mean, there's a lot of artists that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's hard to get to like that point because at first it's very much so like custom based. You kind of just do stuff to get practice in order
Right.
to like, you know, go into your own little niche or like do the drawings and the art that like you want to do. You have to like really
Right.
establish yourself, you know, so people seek you
Right.
out for your style. They're not like, hey, this is what I want. Can you do it? I really like, there's this guy, his name's Oscar Kermo, and he works in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably one of my favorite artists.
Cool.
Just like compositionally and stuff. It's like art, you know, it's not just like a sticker.
Right.
Like he does it like full send, basically. But
You know, I one of my favorite pieces of tattoo art, since I'm a Star Wars fan, I was originally going to get this, and I just passed by. But I was going to throw Chewbacca on a bike, and the wheels were actually Millennium Falcons, you know? And I was like, this would be the best tattoo. And I never had it. And after I got married, my wife said, no,
really?
you're not going to have that.
Conditional upon you not getting this tattoo in the house.
Yeah, that was the deal breaker. She's like, you do it, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. So what kind of resources did you do since you didn't have, you know, you didn't have the education when you first started in the vineyard and you were doing these tours? What kind of resources did you use to actually educate yourself?
Honestly, just mainly like Google, a lot of Vine Pair, Wine Enthusiast, like just like online articles. But also when I would have like one day off, because I was normally tattooing 5 days a week and working in the vineyard 2 days a week, so I never had a day off. I would watch documentaries because I like really like biology.
Right.
In school. If I were to go back, I
Yeah.
would probably major in biology. So yeah, I always loved that. So that would always grab my attention, and I would just watch in my spare time. Yeah.
Okay, I know who that's from. Yeah. I was I was gonna ask you a question. And I totally lost my train of thought. That is my dad brain.
Yeah.
But as far as was there anybody that you saw on the internet that really interested you? Like, I got to give a shout out. I just walked into a live interview with her yesterday, Madeline Puck from Wine Folly.
Oh yeah.
She is, you know, she has been one of my idols and heroes. You know, not only is she a great song, but she skateboards and she bike rides, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. But was there any influence, like person that really influenced you?
I don't know. I wouldn't say like one individual person. I also like her because I actually started reading Wine Folly when I was studying for my WSET level 2, and I remember putting it down because I was like, okay, I need to just focus on one thing at a time. But like the way that she wrote that book, I feel like is very similar to like if I were to try and do some kind of wine book in the future, how I would do it, because it's so visual.
Very visual, yeah.
And I think that really helps like grasp some of the bigger concepts, you know, because you can like write a full, and like with my material, I like find myself just writing, and then at the end, like, well, I don't even want to read this. Like, how do I?
Yeah, I mean, it totally took the sleepiness out of literature. You know, just even sharing some of her profile pics that she shares on Instagram and things like that. Very simplistic. If you're not really truly involved, you will definitely understand it. Will have an understanding by the simplicity that she illustrates.
Yeah.
And I love how visual she is. That's the one thing that's great. And And just one thing I wanted to let the viewers know, if you're watching right now, you could actually go, there's a little, right next to the comment box, there's a little bubble with a question mark. You could actually put a question in there. And I want 1,000 questions for Elise because she was telling me that she was so nervous about coming on today. But we really got to make her feel warmed up and comfortable, all right? Yeah. So go ahead and leave it in that little bubble with a question mark if you have a question for her. Don't leave a question for me, but leave it for her.
Yeah. I wasn't like so nervous about like I feel like everything's through Zoom and Instagram Live and stuff. I was a tour guide for a while, so I'm like, oh, I can talk to people. I was just more like, what are we going to talk about? Like,
no, you are. I mean, I think everybody has a story, you know, and, you know, I think this is the time, you know, as we went into this lockdown, it was really about kind of sharing yourself because people were not attached, you know, they were separated. And so how do you kind of, you know, gain that warmth, you know, that attachment to somebody or connection with somebody? And sharing, I think the most important thing is I always believe that sharing a story, telling a story is the most important thing out of anything, like stats and everything like that. It makes everything more real. Mm-hmm. You know, I think every time, you know, as you were saying, you were a tour guide at a vineyard. One of the job duties that I did at one of the wineries I was at, I gave tours. And, you know, it was fun because I really allowed the guests, you know, the wine drinkers to get to know me, and they felt like at the end, Corey's like my friend, you know? And that's the thing, you know, that I want to bring to this is really share each and every individual story, and you're doing it well. You're doing a great job. So, yeah, absolutely. I got a question. What is your favorite type of wine, and how would you describe wine properly? Like sweet, bitter, etc. Go ahead. Yeah. Take it away. Okay.
I think this is the main question that I always struggle with because I don't have a favorite type of wine. It goes with like, you know, when you like love a song and you like listen to the song over and over and over and over and over again, and then you get sick of the song. Right. But then like a couple of years later you'll like discover it again and fall in love with it. That's how I am with wine. Like I will have one wine that I love, or like I'll be all about, you know, Viognier for like a couple months, and then I'll taste another Viognier and I'll be like, okay, I need to switch it up, and you know, I'll do something hard hitting like like more vet, or like just like a nice strong cab. But so yeah, mine right now, I actually just posted that rosé today, that rosé of Anjou that was really good. I'm not normally a rosé lover because I like I like rosé that is like super flavorful. Like I like my wine to like really taste like a lot. Thank you. So I really like that one because it really has so much flavor to it, and it's like total wine. It's like $16, so I was like, price point.
That's awesome. Yeah. There you go. And you know, I love rosé, and rosé always gets a bad rap because they always compare it to white zin, you know, and rosé now is like, if you go pink, you're chic, you know, it's awesome, you know, and I love what rosé is about, the personality of rosé, and it just has a different expression. I call rosés more like the ballerinas. They have lighter, they're light on their toes, so it's like light on fruits. You know, it's not too heavy, it's not a deep red, or it's not a light white.
Very,
it's
like,
just
social wine. Like it's like what you bring to the barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the most versatile wines out there to pair with food. You know, and again, a lot of consumers, a lot of wine drinkers don't approach it that way, and they don't know that information. I always tell people, hey, you got to try a rosé. You know, there's a lot that's produced here in the States, and then there's some overseas, you know, especially in southern France. You know, you got the Provence, all the stuff that's coming from Provence, and just outstanding, dynamic, beautiful wines. But so what was the wine? Was there any particular wine that just kicked it off for you, that just made it go, I want to continue? Because, you know, I want to tell the viewers you're on your wine set level 3, right?
Yeah,
you're working on that?
No, I finished it. I got that in December of 2019.
Bravo.
Thank
Let's give
you.
a cheers to you. Yes. Yes.
I just want to finish her question real fast. She said the proper way to describe wine. I did see it, don't worry. Like that. Sweet, bitter, dry. There are, you know, there's certain verbiage that a lot of people in the professional industry will use because they're trying to keep the verbiage consistent. So if I say sweet, you know what I mean by sweet. It's not like I'm saying sweet when it's actually, say, like an off-dry wine or not quite dry tasting.
Right.
But when it comes to you and like making your own personal notes, I would say, yeah, if it tastes bitter to you, write bitter. If it tastes sweet, write sweet. And how you get from, you know, something that's like medium sweet to something that's like luscious or really sweet is comparison. So, you know, next time you have a wine, you're like, oh, it's sweeter than the one I had last time. So this one I'm going to write very sweet. You know, like it's the more specific you can be in the verbiage that you get. If you're not working in the industry, like that's all you need, you know? So that's how I would finish up her question. But
no, that was great. I actually use the comparison between peanut butter. Have you ever had Skippy peanut butter and then like a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods peanut butter where it's just peanuts?
Totally.
You go from sweet Skippy, Jif, and then you go to Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and it's just peanuts, and it's like, wow.
You're very
you know,
literal about peanut butter.
Yeah. I kind of throw like little everyday kind of things to describe wines, and sometimes it's pretty freaking hilarious, especially, you know, now that I have a kiddo, you know, it's like I start describing things Disney related or so forth. And so, but what was there a particular wine that just set it up off for you that was like,
I think
that's going to make me want to just be in the industry?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it was Sauterne. And the reason, and I think it's because if you don't know about wine and people talk about sweet wine and there's like, you have no like reference and you don't know anything about sweet wine, you're like, oh, and you kind of think like cheap, like, oh, it's sweet wine. Like you just think like kind of just, but that's not how it is at all. Like sweet wines are so difficult to make. And when you're going through, you know, your courses and you start learning about like botrytis and like, oh, they have mold on the grapes. Like it's so interesting. From something like, you know, a just shriveled moldy grape in the vineyard to this super expensive, delicious, like just honey in a glass, you know? So yeah, I think that's what it was for me. And it's still like that for me. Like if I died drowning in Sauterne, I think that's like a happy way to go.
That's pretty awesome. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, the bottle that did for me was $5.99 Baccarat from Trader Joe's. And I was basically, you know, I always think of wine reminiscent. It's always reminiscent. It puts you in a place, a time when you drink it. A lot of consumers and wine drinkers, they always say, oh, it was so great when I was at the vineyard. You know, it's the ambiance that it's created, you know, the warmth and everything, the meal that you're having. But just a dynamic bottle of wine for $5. And the way it hit me, and I was having at the time, Trader Joe's had this dark chocolate with habanero chili. And I was just kind of sitting on the patio watching. It was dark. I didn't have any lights on. I was just chilling, having this bottle. And I was like, that is it, man. Like, that is, I got to know this. I got to, you know, how could I, you know, get into this? And that was the beginning, real true beginning of my journey into wine. Like all of us, we always have those moments where we're like you said, the Sauterne. I want to drown myself in Sauterne. Now, as far as the industry, where I mean, do you like what's going on with the wine industry right now as far as the growth and everything? Um, how do you see it as from a woman's point of view? Like, where do you want to see the wine industry grow, especially not just from the producer, the distributor, or the retailer part of it?
I really like the push towards organic and biodynamic, obviously. I think that's the most sustainable
Right.
in all of agriculture in general. Um,
Hmm.
I love kind of how it's like opening up a little bit. Like, I
Right.
feel like my personal experience in a lot of my like beginning classes, I feel like you kind of walk in as like 20 something girl, and there's a lot of people there that are like 10 to 20 years older than you, much more established in their careers taking these classes. And it like makes you think a little bit of like, okay, is my generation like not moving towards wine? Like, because I see everyone going like craft cocktail and like craft brewery, because like wine does have this kind of like shroud of intimidation around it, I think a little.
Hmm.
But when I joined social media, specifically, for wine, you do see a lot more people in my generation like in it and kind of having the same conversations and talking about it the same way. So I
Right.
do really like how it's becoming more accessible and more transparent, I guess.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I'm doing a series on my page right now for like firsts, basically for women in wine history, like the first
Hmm.
woman winemaker, the first this. And I was researching the first woman of color winemaker, and she's still alive. And so like that's something I would really like to see change. Like the
Right.
fact that that is so recent to me is, I mean, it's obviously like we all know, but it's still disappointing. You know.
Yeah.
So um, I think more of that as well, just making it like more accessible, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
Definitely.
people, when you get just like all these different minds in winemaking, it makes the coolest stuff. Like
Oh
who
yeah.
had the first idea to do like crushed fruit fermentation or like carbonic? Like who was that person that was like, so what if we just like suffocated it? Like that's the people we need. It's exciting to see.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And for me, being at the retail end, I've experienced it a lot, and I totally embrace and celebrate everything that you just said right now. And I think it's much needed. The diversity part of this wine industry, as far as knowing the first woman that produced wine or created wine, or the first woman of color, or male of color that produces wine. It's just there's a lot of the unknown that is not out there.
mhm.
And what I've discovered is being at the retail level, that I think more of us, because as I was going through my time in the retail level, being wine specialist here and there, a lot of retailers were looking for people that had the wine set or sommelier educations, and they were going, "Oh, we want to bring these people in to enhance our wine department, our wine aisles,"
Mhm.
but yet we don't have the say. We never had the say because it was so involved with this corporate,
Yeah.
being locked down to this court. And I think what they need to do is they need to loosen it up, because there's so much out there. And I think a lot more of these specialists that are out there that are working these aisles need to really put forth, like, hey, we don't need just 5 rows of Camus. We
Yeah.
need 5 rows of this, women owned winery, or this Hispanic owned winery, or this black owned winery. We need more of that. We need more representation, especially here in the state.
Mhm.
You know, I see a lot of it, and it's not until that, if you have that control,
Mhm.
that you're not going to get that.
Mhm.
And so I totally agree with you with what you're saying. And as far as that, like, um, again, I think it's coming from a woman's point of view, like, as far as how is there certain styles of wine that you would like to see produced,
Um, I mean, not really. I like the whole like natural wine movement, not to be confused with clean wine movement. The whole like
Right,
natural wine
right,
thing is great. I think that like I like the direction that's going in. Um, but yeah, I think it just comes down to like I think that as a as a whole as a society, sustainability is like really important, and I also think locally sourcing. And obviously with wine, it's unrealistic to get all of your wine locally sourced because you do want to try different styles from different countries. And I'm never going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to ship a wine from Spain because I'm like, oh no, like I do want to try it.
right.
But just kind of like moving towards at least like some kind of clean energy initiative. So like doing that, you don't feel like you need to always buy locally, and like supporting small producers. And I don't know, I would love to see wine laws like kind of evolve to support that a little bit more, and
Right,
like support some creative freedoms, because when that happens, like there's really cool, everything's like invented by accident pretty much, like
right.
champagne wouldn't be champagne if someone wasn't like, it's a little bubbly, like do you think that's going to explode, like let's do something so I feel like that's kind of a good direction to move in. As far as like style of wine, I don't really have one. I think it would be
Right.
more just kind of supporting like those small ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. I like that. And it says, I have a question here. It says, for somebody trying to get involved in the wine industry, are there any taste testing programs you recommend?
I don't know about taste testing. As far as like programs for like learning. So basically with taste testing, I don't think you need to have like a certain, taste to be able to get involved in the wine industry. Like, even when it comes down to instruction, sometimes, like for example, for the recent exam I took, it had 2 blind tastings in it. And you had to like properly assess each wine. You had to get the tasting notes right. But at the beginning of the class, everyone's tasting notes are, they're roughly the same, but there's a few outliers. But as you're going through the
Right.
class, you're calibrating your palate to the instructor, because their palate is the closest to who's going to be, grading your test. So, you
Right.
take your notes in blue, and then you take her notes or his notes in pink, and you slowly be like, okay, no, he recognizes this as high acidity, or like, I would say it's medium plus. Like, it's kind of calibrating it to them to be tested on it.
Right.
So I don't think that, you need to go in testing your taste. I think it develops as you go. As far as programs that can like help you with the wine knowledge, I personally really do like the WSET programs. They're very consistent with like my learning style,
Right.
because they are pretty visual. Everything that's in the book is like necessary information in the book. If you were to go through and highlight one of those books, like you highlight every sentence, because they just didn't leave any fluff in there. Like,
Right.
and I appreciate that, because it's a lot of info, so you don't want to memorize anything that you're not going to be tested on. So I really like those programs. I'm taking my certified specialist of wine right now.
Awesome.
Just because of quarantine, I was like, another one. I like that one too. I would say that, I mean, so far for me, knowledge base, I think it's like in between a WSET 2 and a WSET 3.
Right.
But it expands a little bit further in certain aspects, and then in certain aspects doesn't, where the WSET does. So it's kind of just like same information laid out differently.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Very cool. Yeah, that was very good. For those of you who are just joining us, we have Elise, Some Whiny Chick. I love the name. I dig it. And we are breaking bread. She's having her I just blanked out. Dad brain again. Sincere. She's having her sincere. I'm gonna say Santerre because he's.
I know. I know.
And I'm having a beautiful Sauvignon Blanc from the Bride Sisters. Right here, let me put it up.
Fridge right now. Yep, that's open.
This is
open in my wine fridge
delish,
right now.
man.
It's good.
This is just.
It's so tropical.
And the interesting thing is, I was watching an interview. I don't know if it was Robin or Andrea that was doing it. It was in celebration. I was on the Black Vines was doing a celebration of 10 years, and they had I think it was Robin.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she was talking about how they're still having problems getting distribution in the States.
Mhm.
And that is, for a big winery like theirs, you're
Yeah.
thinking, again, women, it should be something that we should have knocking down the doors.
Yeah.
It should be breaking down barriers.
Totally.
I actually approached my TJ's wine lead at my local TJ's, and they did a big spread of the McBride sisters for Black History Month, and I was like, dude, you got it. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And he's like, they did a couple of different winemakers, different labels, but that's the thing that we need to do every day.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrate these women, celebrate women. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. And I always say, after I saw what my wife went through in delivery, in labor, it's like, man, the power to you ladies. You guys are studs. Men don't have anything. I always think, doing a bike race or anything like that, that's tough. But after what I saw her go through, I was like, no, not even close.
I'm good.
Yeah. Let me see. I got some questions here.
Okay.
Let me see. I got one. Let me see if I can pull one up. Here we go. I'm going to throw this on here. Do you have any recommendations for vegetarian, vegan friendly wine?
So vegetarian, you're good with wine. As far as vegan goes, a lot of wine isn't vegan because of the clarification process. So they'll use like egg whites, or they'll use fish bladder, or they can use like casein, like milk protein, to clarify the wines. So depending on how strict of a vegan you are, a lot of wine is not. Some wine that is always vegan, however, are kosher wines.
Right.
And yeah, a lot of kosher wine is highly rated, like it's very good. So if you are pretty strict about it, it's not going to really tell you on the label what they use to clarify the wine for most of the time.
Right.
So if you want to be super safe, go with a kosher wine. If it does say vegan on the bottle, it is vegan. And trust me, if the wine is vegan, most of the time they will put it on the bottle because that is a major selling point. So that's my best answer for that one. As far as vegetarian goes,
I dig that. I like that. Let's see. Here we go. You have a degree in art. How have you been able to use your knowledge in art with the knowledge of wine? Very nice question.
That's a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
So
put her on the hot seat.
I know. I feel like it's gonna get very like right now. I feel like art, like wine, very much so it's like art in a bottle, and it's because so many different things have to come together to create it, and it's going off of someone's vision. Like you have the vision of the vineyard manager, working in the vineyard, viticulture, they're tending for the vines, they're timing, sprays, pruning, everything like that. Like they have their own little separate thing. And then you have the winemaker who in their brain, like they have this final product, and they have to create it. It's like steps, 1, 2, and 3. So say, you have someone who wants to make like California Chardonnay. That's the winemaker's goal. That's what they want to do. That's their art. That's their end goal. That's what they see. They now kind of, they take these processes of like, okay, well, we're going to need to get, our oak barrels. We're going to do our malolactic fermentation. And they just like really, they put their sweat and blood into this effort of creating their end vision. And then they bottle it and sell it to people. And the way that you describe wine a lot of times is artistic, and you talk about the vineyard, you talk about the winemaking process, you talk about the vision of the winemaker sometimes, and it's kind of the same thing you would do if you were describing a piece of art. This is the artist's goal, this is the medium, this is the type of canvas they use, I feel like they're really similar in that way.
Awesome, great answer. That was like,
thanks.
I had I always consider that too, and one of the things that I try to communicate with the wine drinker themselves or the consumer themselves, if they're buying a bottle, is a a lot of times we go into a retail outlet we rush. And I love hearing everybody's points of view, whether you had the experience in the vineyards, behind the scenes and the retail aspect and the front lines. But the one thing that I always see is this rush and this intent of just, oh, give me the one with the big alcohol, give me this one, and not even really understanding what's in that glass. And it's art. I consider it, just like what you said, it's artistry. You have interpretations, even the same regions.
Yeah.
You could have two different artists producing wine, and that's what makes wine so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think we lost that word when we think of romantic. We think of Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn, but I always think that is just that's the romantic part of the wine. It's the art, and I see a lot of things in the industry that we got to rush this, you got to decant this, you got to do it this way. Now, slow it down, understand it, because you're not going to really get the real true interpretation of what that artist has put into that bottle.
Yeah.
As you start to lay it all down. And that was the one thing that I really got a good appreciation, a really good grip on, because I learned Old World first, then traveled to New World, and it was biblical to me. It was this eye-opening experience, because I've never been a bookworm. I can't barely sit in my seat, and I look at my son, I'm like, that's me. I can barely sit still. But I think that was the one thing that just gripped me to wine and the history about it and the development and family blood, sweat, and tears, like you were saying. It's this thing, this artistry through years and years and years of development. I think everybody should take their time and really look at things and start appreciating. Even if you don't understand what's on that label, grab a bottle and just try it out.
Oh, yeah.
I think that
totally.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And I think when it comes to stuff like that too, I think what intimidates people sometimes about wine is like, they think that people who know about wine approach every single glass of wine they have like that. They think that every time we pour a glass of wine, or if we're coming to your house and you're going to give us wine, like, oh God, what are they going to buy? Like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's not like, it's this thing. It is kind of like, again, it's kind of like art, I guess. It's like, if you hang art in your house for decor,
right.
it's there to see, and it's like there to enjoy, but not every second of every day are you going to walk up to it and look at it and be like, wow, I just appreciate this so much, like this is my favorite piece, I love every brush stroke, and it's the kind of same thing with wine. Like you're gonna just drink wine some days where you're just like, yeah, I'm drinking it because I like it, something to sip on, something to social with, casually. And then you have the wines that you maybe spent a lot of money on or researched a lot and you're really excited about, and those are the ones you sit down and you like really fully, appreciate and dive in. It's not every time. Like you're going to wear your brain out.
That's the one thing I dig about wine too is, especially during, this lockdown process that we've gone through. I have a small little patio outdoors. We're like on a corner unit. We're upstairs and there's a big tree right next to us. And it looks like when it's in full growth with all the leaves and everything, it looks like you're in a tree house inside the tree. And I loved, I'd tell my wife, hey, let's go grab a bottle and we'll just sit on our veranda, in the tree house. And that's the one thing that wine does. You just have sometimes where you just want to chill, and then there's sometimes where you just let it just enhance the meal. Let it do what it needs to do. Showcase this thing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Man, such a great conversation.
Yay.
I love this. This is great. I was worried because I was thinking like, man, am I gonna have enough to say? I'm like, am I gonna? I'm bad. I know you were gonna lay it down. I was like, she's gonna lay it down, and I'm gonna be like, what am I gonna say? But one of my questions again is there anything that inspires you right now about the industry, where it's going, where it can go?
I'm always inspired by the wine industry. I think it's very cool. And I think it's just because there's so many different aspects of it, like
Right.
there's literally every field in the wine industry, you know, art,
Right.
agriculture, math, chemistry, biology, like everything's there. What inspires me right now? I don't know. I think honestly just kind of headed towards that like small batch kind of stuff. Really like that. Highlight on small producers has been really cool lately. I guess like on a personal note, it's like as you get older and like, you know, you're kind of moving out of like, I want to say like your like young 20s money where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna make it through to like kind of being a real adult. I'm like, oh, I can afford more expensive wine now. Like that's it's exciting to actually have like more than 3 bottles in my wine fridge. So that's
Nice.
But
Nice.
and also just like travel with it's super fun, you know, to be able to see how other people do essentially the same thing.
Right.
And like the family stories of a lot of vineyards like worldwide and like how they connect to family stories here. And it's just like this kind of shared experience that we all get to enjoy together.
It's an amazing culture to be a part of, isn't it? Like, you know, it's just amazing to see what these families go through from the beginning to like where they're at, if they had, you know, triumphs or setbacks. It's just pretty amazing. Now, one of the things I talk about is where I shop. I say, you know, a lot of times I promote Trader Joe's because it's a great place to find very, you know, they got it down.
They did a good job with their wine section for sure.
Yeah, their wine section. Is there a wine shop that is your go-to wine shop that you go to?
Ooh, if anyone has any recommendations actually for LA area, that would be awesome because I don't venture out into the city much. I'm not a city person. So if there is a wine shop that is worth venturing out for, let me know. But right now we mainly do, Trader Joe's. I mean, don't take me to Total Wine. Like you'll be there for an entire day. My fiance's like least favorite thing. It's like a special treat. Like normally it's like, here, do an online order. We're not going to be there forever. Like just, Total Wine is great. Bevmo is also great. Again, I'm from Utah, so like getting alcohol in Utah is at the liquor store. So like having all of these things in California, I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's so like available. I just got back from Santa Barbara for like a wine tasting trip. So just going to the tasting rooms and actually being able to like buy wine from the tasting room is always really fun. And like from the actual winery, that's just like the closest you can get, you know? So
cool.
If anyone has like a
I mean,
that would be awesome.
You know, when I was in LA, I was always afraid the same thing. I was always afraid. I was in the valley for a little bit, and I was totally fearful for going into Total Wine because I knew I was like, I'm not coming out, man. I'm not coming out. There's like I hear trumpets playing and everything. It's like, oh man, I'm in here. I'm stuck.
Totally. It's forever.
Yeah. I was gonna say one more thing, and let me see. Oh, you know, I just laid out a wine pairing. Do you have a particular wine pairing that you totally dig?
Ooh. My fiance and I go to this restaurant called The Little Door in LA, and we go, and it's gonna have to do with Sauterne. Surprise. But every time we go, we do like a little, like, it's fun because we'll experiment with like the wines on the menu and do little pairings. So we always do. They have a really nice, I mean, obviously their vintages switch up, but their Sauterne there is super good. And they have like this like goat cheese tart, and this like sweet potato situation. It's very good. I've also, what's one I did recently? Oh, recently I did the Maomi Pinot Noir, which you can get at Trader Joe's. We're sponsored by Trader Joe's.
Oh yeah.
With a mushroom risotto, which was and it was a vegetarian. We did it with vegetarian broth for the risotto, but you could use beef, obviously. But yeah, just like the mushroom in the wine and like the acidity in the wine and the Parmesan kind of cheese in the risotto, and it was very nice. It was good.
Have you and your fiance ever been to Inn of the Seventh Ray in Topeka County?
Oh no, but I used to drive by it all the time. Oh
man, it's like being in the forest. It's like farm to plate. It's like seasonal.
So it's a restaurant.
They do it's amazing. It's kind of pricey, but if you want a nice to save up your pennies and
Yeah.
do your thing. And it's really cool because you have your, a lot of times you can request your own individual. They have like little spots
Yeah.
where you can have your own individual table. And it's probably going to be more necessary now since people are social distancing still. But totally a killer place. It feels like I said, you're amongst the forest, but they do an amazing pairing plate with cheese and stuff like that. Definitely one to check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Cool.
Let's see. If you had to drink one wine for the rest of your life, what would it be? And if you had never drink one type of wine, which one you never drink again?
Okay. I've actually been asked this question before, and so I do have an answer. Obviously, no
All right.
one would pick to drink one type of wine for their entire life, but if, like, you're up against the wall. Riesling. And it's because,
Riesling?
Yeah, it's so versatile. It's because if
Right.
you want sweet, you can have sweet, and if you want dry, you can have dry. And also, it's
Yeah.
super long-lived, so it would live your life with you.
Right.
So yeah, I think it would be Riesling. Not that it's like Riesling's like the first thing I'd pick every day. It's like, I like it.
Right.
But it's kind of like when people ask you if you could eat one thing for the rest of your life, like I always say, like fish. Because I'm like vegetarian, but I'm mostly pescatarian. I still eat fish. Because you can cook it a bunch of different ways. You can eat it raw and you can eat it cooked. So it's like, it's the versatility for me. So
Right.
yeah. And then never drink again. Not a huge fan of like dry sherry. Like I think that I'll say like no if someone offers it, but I'm not gonna like pick it out. Yeah.
Good ones. I like those answers. And now we're gonna start to wind it down. We're wind it down because we're getting close to the very end. Elise, thank you so much for sharing your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sitting here breaking bread, and I love to bring you on again. See how everything goes.
Yeah.
As we start to get out of this pandemic and we start to really get out and see the world again.
Totally.
And enjoy wine, easily.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have. Oh, I got one more question. I'm gonna give you one more question.
Nice.
Drum roll. Let me see. Drum roll. Okay, I'm gonna give you this one right here. It sounds like you're a vegetarian. Do you find a choice different wines based on the verses of what you're eating? Say steak.
Oh, you mean like wine pairing well with meat? Is that okay? Cool. I haven't always been like non-meat eater. It has just been like about the last year or so.
Right.
I haven't really like super missed it. However, I will say the red wine with steak thing is a classic, and like if we go to a restaurant, I will still order it because it's like special occasion. However, I do really like the Beyond meat. I'm not like, I mean, I know if you're like vegetarian, you don't have to be like, oh, this is my favorite meat substitute, because it's not really like the whole idea. But the Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat, we actually make a lot. And a really good pairing that I found with it lately is basically we'll just make like these like giant Asian veggie bowls with like sesame seed oil, and like soy sauce. And I've found Zinfandel goes like so well with it, like a good, like really fruity, like just California fruit bomb Zin, That's what I'm really enjoying right now.
Awesome. Yeah. That is such a great yeah, I love Beyond Meat. I've been basically a practicing vegetarian since 2006, 2005. And when I was doing triathlons and cycling, as I started to get older, my doctor actually said, hey, could you do more of the Mediterranean diet, incorporating fish and things like that, so salmon. So sometimes I'll incorporate, some fish in my diet. But my son, since day one, ever since he got off of formula, he went straight to almond milk. Mm-hmm. And he's, we've done pretty much a vegetarian diet for him. Mm-hmm. and it's pretty amazing. But it looks like we're about to end this show. Man, why does it go too fast?
Thanks for
But
tuning
Elise,
in, everyone.
thank you so much for joining me. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget, follow Elise Some Money Chick on Instagram. Don't forget to follow me.
Yeah.
Hopefully you like what I did. And stay tuned. There's more.